There's a building at the edge of town you've probably driven past 100 times without ever really seeing it. Cinder block walls, a roll-up door, a hand-painted sign bleached almost white by the sun. Out front, a row of old mowers with paper tags tied to the handles, waiting for owners who keep meaning to come get them. You only notice a place like this the morning your mower won't start. Inside, the air has a smell you don't forget. Gasoline, cut grass, old oil, hot rubber, a pot of coffee that went cold sometime around 10. There are parts drawers labeled in pencil, a coffee can full of carburetors soaking in cleaner, and spark plugs lined up on the bench like shotgun shells. And a Briggs & Stratton flathead, older than the man working on it, taken apart in clean rows across a shop towel. The man is Earl. He opened this shop in 1972, the year he got back from the service. He's missing the tip of one finger. A mower blade in '79 taught him a lesson he used to tell apprentices about, back when he still had apprentices. Above the bench hangs his father's torque wrench. He doesn't use it. He just likes knowing it's there. Earl understands machines that most people only think about the moment they quit. The mower that won't turn over on the first warm Saturday in April. The snow blower that dies halfway through the first real storm. The chainsaw that runs fine cold and stalls the second it gets hot. The generator that sat in a garage for 6 years, then refused to fire the night the whole street went dark. None of it glamorous. All of it important, right when you need it, and not a minute before. For most of the last century, these machines were just part of American life, and the work followed the weather as closely as the weather followed the calendar. In spring, the mowers came in by the dozen, nearly every one of them with last year's gas gumming up the carburetor. In summer, the trimmers and the pressure washers. In fall, the chainsaws sharpened because firewood season was coming. In winter, the snow blowers and the generators nobody had thought about since the last outage. Earl could see the rush coming before his customers could. To the customer, the machine had failed all at once. To Earl, the failure had been building for months. That was the real skill. Not turning a wrench. Anybody can turn a wrench. Reading the neglect. A small engine carries its whole history if you know how to look at it. Old gas leaves varnish behind. Dirt chokes the filter. Oil that should have been changed 2 seasons ago goes black and thin. Machines are forgiving for a while. They are not forgetful. A man rolls a mower through the door and says it just won't start. When it last run? Last summer. Gas still in it? Probably. You drain it? Run it dry before you put it away? No. Change the oil. A pause. And Earl already knows where to begin. There's an honesty in those conversations. The customer wants the machine to be simple. Earl knows it is simple but not magic, which is something the older folks who come through that door already understand in their bones. Things last longer when you look after them. The week before a hurricane is the busiest Earl ever gets. A man came in once, 3 days ahead of a storm, with a generator he'd bought during the last big one and never run since. Stale fuel turned half to lacquer in the carburetor. That's the part people don't see. The mechanic has to be ready before the customer is. He has to stock the parts before he knows which machines are coming. For a long time, that readiness was just woven into how people lived. A lawn mower wasn't disposable. A steel chainsaw became part of a man's work and stayed with him 20 years. A snow blower got handed down the street, one neighbor to the next. And when something broke, people didn't automatically ask what new one they should buy. They asked, "Can you fix it?" That one question kept thousands of shops like Earl's alive. These machines were never elegant. They were honest. They burned fuel. They shook. They made noise. And they belonged to the land. The mower to the suburban yard. The chainsaw to the woodlot and the storm cleanup. The snow blower to the long driveway after a hard night. And for the small landscaper, a Honda that wouldn't start in the morning wasn't an inconvenience. It was a day's pay, gone before breakfast. Then, slowly, the math changed. The machines got cheaper. That sounds like good news, and in some ways it was. But cheaper meant lighter, and lighter meant plastic where there used to be metal, usually in exactly the places you need to reach. A homeowner could stand in that store, look at a new mower on sale, then look at the repair estimate on the old one, and make a decision that is honestly hard to argue with. We've all done it. This isn't a story about foolish customers. It's a story about an economy that quietly stopped rewarding the one thing Earl is best at. Because a shop can't run on machines that are cheaper to replace than to fix. The machine might be small, but the skill isn't free. The time isn't free. And here's the part that stings. Earl didn't get worse. If anything, he got better, because the machines got harder, emission systems, safety switches, electronics. The market just stopped paying for better. And the trade is getting old. The old way in was simple enough. A kid swept the floor. Then he learned to change oil, sharpen a blade, clean a carb. Then, slowly, he learned the thing you can't get from a video: diagnosis. He learned that a machine can lie to you. A mower can act like it's starving for fuel when the real trouble is a weak spark. But fewer young people want that life. The work is heavy, the shop is loud, the air smells like gas. A bench full of carburetors doesn't look like much of a future. So Earl is in his 60s now. His hands still know the work cold, but his back hurts from lifting mowers onto the bench, and his knees hurt from the concrete. And the bench beside him, the one where the apprentice used to stand, has a vise bolted to it and nothing else. When a man like Earl finally closes his door, the town doesn't just lose a business. It loses somebody who knew how to fix the things the town quietly depends on. That's why this is worth noticing. Not for nostalgia, not for faded signs and dusty counters. For something more practical than that. When the local shop closes, your choices get narrower. You drive farther. You wait longer. You pay more. What you lose is the person who could look at the thing and just tell you the truth. Sometimes that truth is good news. It only needs a plug. The carb's gummed up, that's all. Blade's dull. You left old gas in it. And sometimes it's the other kind. The engine's tired. The part doesn't exist anymore. The deck's rusted through, and it'll cost you more than the mower's worth. But here's what keeps a place like Mercer's open. The need never actually went anywhere. Grass still grows. Snow still falls. Storms still drop branches across driveways. The power still goes out on the worst possible night. So they're still out there. Some in proper shops with a service counter. Some working out of a garage behind the house, half retired, still taking in machines from neighbors because they can't quite bring themselves to stop. They survive because the need survived. A mower rolls through the door. The customer explains the problem. Earl listens, asks his 2 or 3 questions, and pulls the machine toward the bench. He pulls the cover, checks the gas, looks at the plug, cleans the carb, sharpens the blade. Then he fills the tank, sets the choke, braces one foot against the deck, and pulls the cord. Nothing. He pulls it again. On the 3rd pull, the engine coughs, catches, and settles into that rough, steady sound that's been carrying across American yards for as long as there have been American yards. To anybody else, it's just noise. To Earl, it's information. He's listening to the idle, listening to find out whether the fix is going to hold. He doesn't smile. He listens for a second longer, reaches over, shuts it down, and writes up the ticket. Another machine running again. Not forever. Nothing runs forever. But for now. For one more season. One more storm. One more job. Because keeping old America alive was never the dramatic part. It was the people who kept things running and refused to throw away every machine that quit on them. Earl will never be famous. His shop will never be clean enough for a magazine. His hands will always smell faintly of oil. But as long as grass grows and snow falls and engines fail, there will be a small shop somewhere with the light on, a bench full of parts, and a man who still asks the old question before the new one. Not, what should you buy next? But, let's see if we can get it running again. Sometimes that's all it is. A small engine, catching on the 3rd pull. If stories like this stay with you, subscribe to the channel, and I'll tell you the next one.